now. Ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelt.
Welcome to Preneurcast.
Business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gocher.
How well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at preneurmedia.tv.
Hello, Mr. Peter.
Hello, Mr. Dom. How are you, sir?
I am very well, and hello to everyone on this week's Preneurcast with me, Pete Williams. Oh, with you, Pete Williams.
I can be Dom Gouch if you want.
Yeah, do you want to be Dom Gouch this week?
It's so hot over here by the beach.
Oh, it's really cold.
It's actually not. It's actually quite nice.
My legs are really sore because I've been running a lot. I can't do it, Did. I'm sorry.
So how's the week been?
Good. How's the Christmas craziness down there?
Not too bad, actually. Haven't really done a whole lot of Christmas stuff yet. Haven't done any shopping yet. And apparently we are going Christmas light driving tomorrow night. I've been informed. The girls are dragging me out to look at some Christmas lights. So I'm super excited.
Do you know, I never really had that on my list of reasons not to live in the UK anymore. But I think I might put it on there. Yeah. I think we'd have to drive a pretty long way to go Christmas tree light driving, but you enjoy that.
Well, apparently we are driving a long way. Apparently we're driving the other side of the city to go looking at lights. I'll report back next week what they're like.
I'm agog. I'm riveted. I'm on the edge of my seat for that report.
So this week, anything exciting happened since the last episode? I can't really think of anything major that's popped into the world of business and marketing and entrepreneurship. Oh, actually I do have something.
Oh. So I start the news sound effects? Or?
No, we'll save it to the end of the show because it'll have a bit more context, I think, at the end of the show.
Okay, well, do make a note of that. I would hate for us to not talk about it. No, the only grand news is the progress of our little mastermind group for the 7 levers.
Going very, very well. People seem to be loving it.
Yep, nearly at the end of the first run of that. Been very successful so far.
People have had some killer results, which is fantastic. Made some huge progress in their businesses, which has been so much fun.
Yeah. I have to say, actually, I have really enjoyed that. We're working with other people to improve their businesses. It's been great.
So let's do some more improving. That is a
improving.
Yeah.
Let's make a word up for the week, shall we? Improving.
Improving.
The word of the week.
We'll do some more improving, and talk in this week's podcast, which is all about.
Oh, you want me to fill in the blank? Sorry.
I wasn't trying to build suspense. I was letting you step in there.
Well, it is coming up to Christmas. It is. I suppose we should play along. I'm fitting two things together. A while ago, we had an email from a listener. Very interesting email. But one of the questions that they asked was, what is a good book, or what are good books to get started in business? And you and I sat down and we talked about this, and we just kind of thought, well, that's one of those really big questions, and there isn't any one book. But what was interesting was, because you come from this background of business, and you've been in business for, well, longer than I've been working. It's depressing. But you've been in business for a very long time, and so your perspective on what people might find useful is different to mine, because I would say I was relatively new to this business thing. I've had a lot of different, not a lot of different jobs, but I've had a number of different jobs in different sectors and worked for a number of companies. But working for myself, and therefore being in business, is a relatively new thing to me. So it was very interesting. I just thought that we could kind of extend that chat. And I at the time gave you the challenge, and hopefully you can rise to this challenge. And I gave you the challenge of coming up with your top 5 business books, the books that everybody who's in business or getting into business should read, devour, and kind of follow along with. So, are you good to do that?
Absolutely. Let's delve into it. Now, we've obviously done a book episode in the Preneurcast this year, which was more of a generic reading list, wasn't it? Just general entrepreneurship and marketing and business books, whereas this is specifically targeted to people who are just starting out. Is that a fair frame to set this episode?
A fair frame. I mean, when I got the original question and when you and I talked about it, it was to me the bookshelf episode was literally what is on Pete Williams' bookshelf. It was a point of interest for me to see the books that had inspired and influenced you across the board. And there were a lot of personal development books and inspirational books, as well as specific business development books in there. So yeah, this to me is to focus on business and business development. But yeah, I'd like to see what you think are the ones for people getting started or that want to improve, kind of improve, but more getting started, because I think those two are different things. Can go in very different directions. So let's stick with the getting started.
All right.
Yeah,
beautiful. So should I kick this up with some of my list? And you've got a few books as well.
Yeah, let's see what you say, and let's see if I agree. Let's put it that way.
I'm going to make a prediction that on your list will be the EMyth.
You might be right.
It is your one fallback default book. That I do love it.
If we're going to do that, then I'm going to make a prediction that you might possibly have Influence by Robert Cialdini on your list.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think let's start with that, shall we? We'll start with that in no particular order. I think Influence is absolutely a must-read. I remember, I think it was Simon Reynolds, who's a big advertising name in Australia here, recommended that book years and years ago that I heard it on an audio cassette presentation he made at one point. That's how old the book was when I first came across it. And I think it's a must-read from definitely a business perspective, because Cialdini in that book, the author, covers a range of different influence factors and what actually influences human nature. And it is so important, not only from just a social aspect, and I know, in books like The Game by Neil Strauss, obviously has a lot of the influence elements throughout that book. And I think it's important for social dynamics, but more importantly for business, because as you actually grow your business, whether you are trying to communicate with staff, communicating with suppliers, and obviously trying to market to prospects and clients, being able to influence them is a really powerful skill set you can have. So it talks about things like authority, about reciprocation, about commitment and consistency, and all these other sort of influence factors that you should be able to weave into your marketing material, into your conversations, into your emails internally, your internal memos that you send around. If you can sort of get that influence factor as part of your everyday business life, you'll find huge results by actually getting people to be on board with your ideas and your movement and be able to help move that ship in the right direction. So I think Influence is definitely a very, very core book that everyone should read anyway, whether they are just a parent trying to influence their children or whether they're obviously trying to grow an enterprise in a business way.
Yeah, we laugh about this, and we have this weekly joke that's your favourite book and the EMyth is mine. But I do really like Influence because I like psychology. It's one of the reasons I got interested in marketing, because marketing is psychology, let's face it. And I like that, but I do like that it is very widely applicable. It's not a business book. It's not a sales book. And am I right? The story goes that the book was originally written by him because he's a very well-respected researcher, isn't he? He's a scientific researcher.
University lecturer and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he's a university lecturer. And this came from a deep scientific study, quite a big, extensive scientific study. And he published it so that people could be aware that they were being influenced. It was more of an observation of that than a training manual, as it were.
Yeah, I've heard that story. How true it is, I don't know, but it makes a good tale either way. But yeah, it could definitely be the real reason. But obviously, the way it was interpreted and based on his many corporate speaking gigs since the publication of the book, it's definitely been used as a marketing tool as opposed to a awareness type book.
Yeah, but it definitely, I agree with your point that it's applicable in so many different places, that it's all about influence. It's about getting someone to do what you want. or go in the direction that you believe is the right direction for the company, and so on. So yeah, I'm in a kind of a point counterpoint kind of way. I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna say, yeah, I agree with you on that one. Right. Even from my point of view, which is very different to yours.
Very, very cool. Okay, so the second book, let's fly through this. The second book I have on my list is by Guy Kawasaki. And it's probably a book that a lot of people won't expect. He's written about 9 or 10 books, I think, now. Everything from a book on database development all the way through to enchantment, his most recent one. He wrote a book years and years ago called Rules for Revolutionaries, which, in my opinion, was basically just rehashed and re-released as The Art of the Start. So it's a very, very similar book to his original one, Rules of Revolutionaries. And that book, I thought, is really, really engaging, very, very educational, to use that term. But it's just a really good foundation about what it takes to actually make a movement. Because hopefully, most businesses should have some sort of movement element to it. So, and Kawasaki does a great job sort of communicating that movement, and he actually talks a lot about his experiences at Macintosh and Apple, because he was one of the first evangelists working with Steve Jobs in the Macintosh team. And the Rules for Revolutionaries is a very, very cool book. And if you've read The Art of the Start, I wouldn't necessarily say go back and read Rules for Revolutionaries, because it's basically the same book, but it's a fantastic read. And if you can actually pick up the audio presentation or speech that Guy Kawasaki gave back in 97 or 98 at the $1 Million Roundtable, it's very, very cool, very, very funny, and it covers all of the main elements out of Rules for Revolutionaries. And that's a presentation he gave at the $1 Million Roundtable.
Cool. I'm a kind of a recent convert to Guy Kawasaki. It really was on your original book list recommendation that I got into that, but I love the breadth of his background, as you say. The guy's written a book on databases, but he was the evangelist for the Mac, and I think that's really what this one's about, isn't it? It's about the evangelism, about believing in what you do and believing in your product and communicating that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cool.
Book number 3 on my list, and I might actually end up going a bit over 5, actually, but we'll see how we go, is a book by Jeffrey Gittomer called The Little Red Book of Selling. It ties back into the reason that influence is on my list, is that, business fundamentally is about marketing and selling. Everything else to me is part of the delivery. Obviously, if you can't get customers, if you can't convert customers, you don't really have a business. You just have a factory or a facility or a nothing. So Jeffrey Gittomer is a sales guru, for want of a better term. He's a more recent version of incarnation of Tom Hopkins that a lot of people may have heard of. And in his book, Little Red Book of Selling, he covers a lot of different sales strategies and sales processes and different ways to communicate and sell. And it's a fun little read, very tactile in the way the book's actually presented. It's a very visual and engaging layout of the book. But I think, sales skills is a primary factor to have, whether you're trying to, sell for getting funding or selling someone on working with you, or again, just trying to sell to a prospect or a client. Having those sales skills is a real key factor for a business owner. And I guess I should put a bit of a caveat on all of these recommendations. I look at entrepreneurs and business owners as people who should be growing a business to work on their business. They shouldn't be on the tools. And this is sort of comes back to obviously what you'll talk about when we talk about the EMyth book. But a lot of people, they may have done an apprenticeship. They know how to build a house or fix a car. They might be a mechanic, for instance, and they want to start a business so they can be their own boss. And all they ever do is just stay on the tools. Now, if that's where you want to go, there's probably a whole series of different books to actually read, and books about how to actually hire a marketer to work for you and take over that side of the business. If you wanted to stay on the tools, then by all means do that. Steve Jobs and Wozniak created a very, very successful company, but Apple was growing because of Steve Jobs' marketing and skill set. and Woz just stayed on the tools. And if you read Steve Jobs' biography, it talks a bit about Woz's reluctance to actually leave HP to go and work for Apple full time because he wanted to stay on the tools, so to speak. So the caveat around all these books is for someone who actually wants to actually grow and work on a business and be an entrepreneur as opposed to being on the tools. I think it's very, very hard to actually be someone who's actually on the tools and an entrepreneur in the same sentence. A lot of people try and do it, but very, very rarely succeed. So that's sort of a small caveat to this list, I guess.
Yeah, you've saved me saying that later, but I will come back to it definitely, because that's the big news from my year, I think, was that realization. So I'll talk about that in a bit. Anyway, So next book?
Guerrilla Marketing, J. Conrad Levinson. Again, this marketing undertone, the current of this episode is all about marketing. So Guerrilla Marketing is a great reference guide, or even the Guerrilla Marketing Handbook, which was actually co-written by Seth Godin, which is quite interesting. And the book, either of the books, just talk about guerrilla tactics for marketing. So how to actually market a business, an enterprise, a project using low cost, mostly measurable, high ROI, testable marketing tools, techniques, and processes. So Guerrilla Marketing is a must-read from a marketing perspective because, again, if you can't market your business, you don't have any prospects to sell to. So you need to have the marketing to be able to get people into your funnel that you can then sell to. So Guerrilla Marketing, J. Conrad Livingston, or Guerrilla Marketing Handbook with Seth Godin. That's sort of a 1.1 book. You get a little bonus one with that one.
Cool. Yep, I've actually read the Guerrilla Marketing Handbook, and I can but that book really does speak to your methods and strategies, because that's really what you're all about. You are all about marketing, but marketing with massive return on investment, massive leverage, rather than just running to stand still.
Yeah.
So one of my very first ever business books, actually. That one.
Very, very cool. I'd also throw in there an awesome book called How to Turn Your $1 Million Idea into a Reality, which was written purely, apparently, aimed directly at people who wanted to start a business idea and take their idea and make it a reality. So that might be worth checking out if people are interested in that one.
Who might the author of that book be, Mr. Peter Williams?
He's got the same name as me. But look, seriously, I'm proud of the book. I think it covers a lot of different concepts when it comes to turning an idea from your imagination right through to implementation. And look, if you want to get a free version of the book, you can. It's available online. If you head over to simply preneurmarketing.com, which is my blog, and when you get there and you actually sign up to be part of the Preneur community, you actually get access to the audio version of the book. I got the actual rights back to the book a few months ago from the publishers, and part of that I was able to get an audio version produced, and I'm just giving it away for free. So if anyone's interested in a copy of that book, you can get that over at preneurmarketing.com. And there's probably other...
I really should give you a severe kicking for pitching, but I agree with you.
I'm proud of the book. I wrote the book because I thought there was a gap in the marketplace. It would be remiss of me not to actually help our audience out by giving them what I believe are the top 5 books in the space.
I have to say, all joking aside, when I went through that book, it is, ironically, one of the better answers to the question we got, which is, if there's one book that'll walk me through it, what is it? And you're right. I mean, you wrote that book years ago, and it is a step by step. You tell the story of how you did what you did, how you got where you are, how you took one particular idea, and you don't hold anything back. You do tell the whole story about how you did things, why you did it, and you give away quite a few of your kind of ninja secrets about marketing and sales and promotion. It's like a miniature version of the previous book, the previous 4 books that we just talked about, really, but shown with real world examples. So I'm gonna let you have that in the list, even though it's yours.
Maybe we should have actually planned this better, and you should have made it one of your 5, just to sort of not look too
totally pimping. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No.
Can we edit it? Can we edit this out a little bit and do some post? Can we fix that in post?
You're not allowed to say that to me.
True. It's probably worth mentioning a couple of other books that I think, that's my 5, but there's probably a couple of other ones that I'd suggest people keep an eye out for as well. A book called My Life in Advertising by Claude Hopkins. Again, marketing specific, but he was one of the original gurus, so to speak, of advertising and marketing, and this is one of his memoirs. So My Life in Advertising. And he's also got another book called Creative Advertising, I think it's called, the other one.
Scientific Advertising.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. It's just that they're currently a lot of the times if you see that book, it's actually a double book.
Correct.
With those two titles in it.
I'd also there's a book that I haven't checked out yet, so this is going to be something I'm going to recommend. I'm recommending a book I haven't actually read.
Sorry, that just reminds me of a very funny situation in my old corporate life. Do carry on.
Okay, well, obviously I'm giving the disclaimer here. A book called Business Model Generation. Now, it's a book that's only kind of crossed my path in the last few weeks. I haven't had a chance to actually fully devour it. I have had a flick through the book, so I actually have touched it. So there's some credibility there. But a lot of people I know that I respect very, very highly have strongly recommended I check this book out. So on the back of their recommendation, I'm passing it on to our listeners. So it's not coming directly from me. It's coming from my mastermind group, so to speak, of associates and mentors and people in my circles have strongly suggested checking this book out. So Business Model Generation is a book, and I think you can find it at businessmodelgeneration.com. So for starting out a business and actually trying to develop the model for your business, from what I've heard, this book is unbelievable. So Business Model Generation is worth checking out.
Okay, just to fill you in, okay, because you deserve this. There was once a situation in my old corporate life where a second level manager received an email from his direct manager, and the email had an attachment on it, and the body of the email was as follows: "This looks interesting. I haven't read it."
Okay, this looks interesting. I haven't read it.
Yeah. Just to give you a little bit of background on why I laughed at your recommendation there.
Fair enough too.
But I do say knowing your mastermind group, if they recommend it, I'll go get a copy and give it a good scour. Definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is it? And probably anything by Jay Abraham, Dan Kennedy, probably two great authors when it comes to marketing. Jay Abraham's a bit more towards business. Fundamentals and structure and a little bit of modelling to a certain extent as well, whereas Dan Kennedy is purely about making that person open their wallet and throw money at you.
I've not heard it put that way before, but yeah, I can agree with you. Okay, have you got any other specific books? I mean, I've got your top 5, and I'm happy. I would be happy to just stop there and say I pretty much agree with you that from the perspective that you come from and the way that you do things, that those top 5 are a good start for anybody getting going, or wanting a little bit of direction with their business.
Look, they're definitely my top 5. Let me have a look through my bookshelf while I'm actually sitting here and seeing what else I can find that might be a potential fit.
Okay, well, while you do that, let me kind of pitch in from my side of the fence, because I class myself as a relatively recent business person. So I've actually got the perspective of that, whereas you've been in business and you're coming from the perspective of knowing what works and knowing from that point of view what's important to know. From my point of view, I think the biggest change in my business and my attitude towards business this year did come, all joking aside, from my reading the EMyth. And it's not so much that I think it is the be-all and end-all of business books. I don't. I'm quite realistic about it. It's got a lot of flaws in it. It's not perfect. It's not everybody's cup of tea from a writing style. Some of the examples don't map easily to other people, things like that. But the core concept that I can distill this book down to, and it's repeated all the way through, and there are some very good examples, is exactly what you said in your little breakaway, which is about being a technician versus being a business person. What, as you say, you call it being on the tools. And in the book, Michael Gerber talks about being a technician, anybody that has technical skill. And in my industry, that could be somebody who's a good video editor or a good graphic artist or somebody who's good at some of the more advanced tools like Photoshop, which a lot of people will have heard of, or maybe even After Effects, which is something that everybody will wave their arms about and say, oh, yes, you need to use After Effects. Okay, folks, don't. And this is the point about being a technician. After Effects operators, or even Photoshop operators, or even video editors, are highly skilled professionals that have done their 10,000 hours, or even their 100 or 200 or 300 hours. They're good at what they do. But what makes them good at what they do with that doesn't make them good at being business people, and it won't make you good at being a business person. And so when I read the EMyth, having been an absolutely classical technician for a long time in a lot of the roles that I've done, it really made me stop. And now I identify everything that I do. Every task I'm going to do, I look at it and I say, am I being a technician? Or is this going to move my business forward? Can I get someone else to do this? Albeit, and this is one of those big problems, and he talks about it in the book, albeit, could somebody do it not quite as well as I would do it myself? And that's the hardest thing for a classic technician to face. And he talks about that in the book. Because when you're good at what you do, from a technician point of view, delegating it to somebody else is a very difficult thing.
That's why I've never and never will install a phone system.
Don't get started.
That's it. If you don't know how to do it, you can't tell someone they're doing it wrong.
That's true. That is true. And that's and that really, from my perspective as a technician, it's an important book. But from a business person's point of view, the flip side of that coin, the other side of that fence, is don't try and be a technician. And this is very common in people getting involved in the online space. People see something like WordPress and they go, that looks really easy. I think I'll have a go. I won't outsource that. I won't hire somebody to handle my WordPress pages. I won't pay somebody. I'll update my podcast website myself. I will publish the audio files myself. I'll publish my own video myself. There comes a point when, even though you can, it doesn't mean you should. And that's probably the message I would pass on, probably more from the EMyth than the original message of, if you're a technician, you need to stop being a technician. I think the message for most people is, if you're not a technician, don't start being one, from that book. And that, when you're starting out, this is where I think some of my books, my recommendations are coming from, is when you start out, if you start out, as you said with your last example, with the right business model or the right mindset, you'll go in the right direction. You won't veer off the path. You won't dilute your attention. And focus is really important, because running a business takes a lot of energy. And if you're trying to run a business and work in the business at the same time, you're on a losing streak a lot of the time. It's a very rare person that can do both. Yeah?
Absolutely. Could not agree more. Yeah. So enough foreplay. Let me get into your list.
Yeah, so the EMyth is my top one. I would tell pretty much anybody who's in business, thinking of being in business, to go get that, to get your head right. Yeah? That's that. It's as simple as that. Get your head right. Look at the EMyth. And another one about getting your head right. And this I read this in its first incarnation a while ago. It's a book called Rework. Ooh. And this Rework comes from a bunch of software developers called 37 Signals. And before you go running to the hills, because it's about software again, it's not. They rewrote their original book.
Getting real, which I prefer.
Which you prefer, but it's a little bit too software-y.
True.
I do prefer it too. But I can map the examples, so it doesn't really matter whether it's Rework or Getting Real that you get. But 37 Signals are the gang that built Basecamp. which is a team project management, cloud-based, internet, online, web-based project management tool of incredible popularity.
And develop Ruby on Rails.
And as part of that project to develop Basecamp, they developed the programming language, which is going to lose 95% of the audience, called Ruby on Rails, which enabled them to very quickly react to the requirements of their customer base and enhance Basecamp and its other sibling products. But the point of Rework or Getting Real is that they talk about their ethos. They talk about the way that they built their system, because building what they built in the time that they built it with the resources that they had was a phenomenal achievement. And you need to have a good plan if you're going to do something like that, and you need to be very sensible about how you allocate resources and how you do the work. So it's a good parable, if you will, about how to set up a distributed business with a very big goal and about how to get there. So there's a lot of talk about things very similar to minimum viable product, which we talked about last week, about JFDI and about also about hiring people, what kind of people to hire. So it crosses a lot of things, and a lot of people would avoid this book or not really pick it up because they think it's about software. But I think it's a good mindset business model book, especially if you're starting out. If you've got a clean sheet. And this is something that occurred to me this last week when I was talking to some other clients. If you've got a clean sheet, you've got a really good opportunity to do it right. If you're already in the middle of it, it can be quite daunting to stand back, look at it, and try and see how you can fix it. So when you're starting out, if you can start out with the right mindset, or if you decide that today is the day you're going to start going in a new direction, starting out with the right mindset is a good thing. So those are my two mindset books.
Awesome.
I do have a third mindset book, and this is definitely about business models and setting up. And that is Built to Sell.
Yes.
Now this is another one I got via you. In fact, via an interview that you did with the author.
Have I actually? I don't think I've published that yet. Actually,
you haven't. No.
I should publish that.
You should publish that.
There's a back catalogue of interviews and conversations I've had with various authors and marketers
and luminaries. Yeah,
I should need to get them out to the world.
Yeah. So, Built to Sell, which I will just distill very quickly down, it's a mindset book because it is about working out what you're going to do with your company from the start. I.e., are you going to sell it? And it's similar in a way to the EMyth in that you're encouraged throughout the book to create a business entity that isn't anchored on you as the superstar. It isn't anchored on your skills. You build a team, you build a business, and you build processes for that team to run that business so that it becomes an entity that if you want to, later on down the line, you can sell as an entirety that doesn't need you to keep spinning the plates to keep it going. So it's a very high level look into that book. There's a lot of detail in there, and I like it. It was written well, but it's another one of those mindset books.
Yeah.
So that's my three mindsets. Then I've got some other side of the fence kind of customer mentality books. And one of those is Why We Buy by Paco Underhill.
Nice.
And this, I think, really, really was the very first business, marketing, sales-oriented book that I ever bought. And it was ironically recommended via somebody talking about website usability, which is something that I'm very interested in. Because in this book, this is another scientific book. This team has done a lot of scientific studies, and they come back with hard data on the most fascinating topics about what makes people buy or not buy goods and services. And they did a lot of studies about things like physical retail stores, the arrangement of things in the store, even down to the width of the aisles between the different shelves, the height of the shelves, the placement of things on the shelves, and even where to place shopping baskets within the store. And they proved statistically the difference that these things make. And it really does. It's one of those books, once you've read it, you will walk around in your daily life and you will see so much more of the world, because they identify things that you just either miss or take for granted. And it's a little bit like influence, in that once you know about them, you might spot somebody doing them.
Yep.
So it's kind of a fun book, but it's also very important from a marketing and sales perspective that you understand what affects people's buying, the psychology of buying in people. So that's one I really like. And another one is a relatively new book, which has been doing the rounds, and everybody has been saying it's fabulous, awesome. It's, book of the insert time period. And within a context, yes, it's a very good book. And it is Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. I really enjoyed reading this book. I've in fact gone through it twice, made a bunch of notes, and because it's one of those books. It's a blueprint book, and so many people bandy that word about, and I really don't like it. And in fact, it turns me off. If I see any marketing material that says blueprint in it, I usually know that it's not going to have a blueprint in it. We used to have an old joke that if you have to put quality in the name of a product, it probably isn't.
What happens if you put like 2000 in the product?
Yeah, well, Gateway Computer, look what happened to them. They used to be Gateway 2000. It's one of those things. Don't put the word in just because it doesn't make it. But the thing about Pitch Anything is, very quickly, is it's a blueprint for pitching. Now, again, I'll give some background. The book is written by a guy called Oren Klaff, who has a big background in pitching, financing deals, getting funding for really big projects from venture capital companies. So, the guy moves millions of dollars around every day. Does deals that are in inverted commas worth millions. And if you're in that industry, you know that that's a relative term, but the point is that what he did was took his experience and knowledge and then took that to a couple of scientific researchers and had them analyze it and redefine it in psychological terms. And he wrote this out in a very, very interesting, very engaging, very entertaining book that lays out the process, the key steps and the key areas to focus on when you are trying to pitch to somebody. And you before we even looked at this book, you've been very big on context and framing. And framing is a huge thing in that book for him. And it's a very, very important part of any kind of negotiation or any pitch. So this is one of those books that's applicable across the board, not just in selling high stakes investing, or getting lots of venture capital and things like that. It's applicable across the board whenever you are trying to talk to somebody and get them to buy, as it were. Although, I'll caveat that by saying you can't get someone to buy. But it's about yep, and make sure you've got what they want. So make sure there's some water there. So that's my top 5. My little extra one on the side of that is a book I've literally just picked up, and a book called Flinch. And this is a book that's been published by Seth Godin's publishing project called the Domino Project, which is something that he's doing in partnership with Amazon. And they are leveraging the power of the Amazon Kindle platform in that to publish on Kindle, because it's digital media, the cost of publication and distribution is massively reduced. So they are trying to focus on time to market, accessibility to a large publishing platform by smaller authors or less known. And it's a great project. I'm right behind it. I think it's a great thing to do. But he's got some really good authors. I believe Stephen Pressfield's second book went through the Domino Project as a publication.
Yep.
Do the work. But this book called Flinch, it's a really interesting concept. It's another book on psychology, but it's the psychology of you as the person in business. And the core of the book is very simple. We all flinch. There's things that make us all flinch, that make us back away from something that we consider to be dangerous, or that might do us some harm, or that we just feel uncomfortable about. And it's a little bit of a build on the Seth Godin concept of the lizard brain. This thing inside of you, deep down in your psyche, the kind of origin of the human brain that's just reacting to things. And it talks a lot about the kind of things that you might not be doing just because somewhere inside of you is a voice that you might not even notice that says, you might get embarrassed if you do that, or you might fail if you do that, or it's all about that little voice in your head that stops you from doing things. Yeah? Yep. And it's just a great book that spends the entire book identifying that, getting you to admit it, getting you to spot it, and getting you to realise that it's not the end of the world, whatever it is. We've talked about this before, about going for no, about failing forward, about so what if that person that you called didn't buy what you offered them? Call somebody else. And I think, from my point of view, being a person new to business, I like the idea of the book Flinch, because people starting out can be afraid of the unknown. And it can stop them from making those big, bold steps. And just back to your book, the $1 Million Idea. That's something that if you stand back and look at it, doesn't exist in the $1 Million Idea. The concept that you might fail, the concept that somebody might laugh at you, the concept that you might look silly if you stand on a piece of carpet in the car park outside of the Melbourne cricket ground with a big cheesy grin on your face for a photograph opportunity for the local newspaper. Never occurred to you. You just went and did it.
Yeah.
And this is one of those perspective things where I think it's important to admit that there are people out there that might feel a little bit silly doing that. And so Flinch is a good book to help people get over that, I think. It's to just realise that, you're going to have to do it. If you want to do it, you want to get on, you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to identify the things that are really going to cause you harm and the things that you just have a bit of a flinch about, and press on. So that's me and mine. Did you come up with anything else?
Oh, no, I had a bit of a look, and there's plenty of other books I recommend reading, but specifically to get started, not really. There's books like Todd Grading that you should read when you start hiring staff, and I'm definitely not the person to speak to or talk about successfully hiring staff. That's not really what my forte is, but that is a great read about a process for hiring staff. But that's a few steps down the path of starting a business. So there's plenty of other books that once you're up and running, I could recommend, but that might be another episode of Preneurcast in the future. Yeah.
I think let's keep it sane. Let's keep it sensible. I really like your 5, and I agree with them. I've put my 5 in, as I said, from that other perspective, from the not everybody's Pete Williams perspective. Sorry, mate, but it's true. On that top grading thing, I got that recommendation from Dave Jennings.
Tough read. It's a big book.
It's a big old book. What about we chase old Dave down in the new year? See if he wants to come on and talk to us about hiring people.
Oh, we can get him on easily. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think hiring people is a big thing, big important part of growing your business and just in general in outsourcing, however big or small your business is. And old Dave's a bit of a ninja at that, isn't he?
Absolutely. Well, I can just go easily wrangle him up because his office is inside my office now, so I can definitely go and wrangle him up and tie him to a seat and make it happen. So
cool.
Easy.
So let's get that booked in. All right, mate. Well, that's good. I'm pleased that we went through a little bit of a smaller list this week, a bit more focused, and did a little bit more about why we think those are good books. So that's our kind of Pete's top 5 and my top 5 business books for people getting started out. Now I'm going to remind you, Pete, see if you can remember what it was that you were going to talk about at the beginning, because you said there's something relevant to this.
Absolutely. And
something exciting that's happened this week.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. A awesome amazing service is coming out of alpha or beta or whatever it might be termed these days. And
so a new service then?
Well, it's been around, but it hasn't really had a formal public launch, so to speak. And that's happening this week, and I'm very, very excited about it going public. And it's a service that you can check out over online at justreadit4.me. So it's justreadit4.me. So what the service is, it's a book summary service, so that's how it relates to what we've been speaking about today, but it does it with some awesome flair. It's not your typical 3-4 page black and white text summary of a book. They actually adopt what's referred to as the LEMA learning method, which is learn, experience, memorize, and act. And basically what Read It For Me does is it actually takes a book every week and actually applies this LEMA process to it. So you've got the learn section, which is simply just an overview about the high-level concept of what the book's about. What's the book's core tone and message? Then it breaks it down and allows you to actually experience the summary of the book. So it does that. Well, actually, it's slightly different. The learn, let me go back a step. The learn actually gives you the summary in a visual way. They actually produce a 10 to 15 minute video of the book in summary format. So you actually can sit there and actually learn through multimedia, which is obviously a way a lot of us devour our content these days and have been doing so for years. So our body has adapted to actually learning through visual stimuli and audio based stimuli. So they've done this with video. So it's a very cool, engaging video they produce every week. They also put together a very visual enticing PDF summary of the book. So again, rather than being 2 or 3 pages of just text heavy, they actually make it very visual, which is very, very engaging. And there's actually a book inside the members area called Multimedia Learning, which is talks about this principle and those principles I mentioned there. So there's actually a summary of a book called Multimedia Learning, which they've taken and applied throughout the entire process of the book summary. So they have that in the learn section of this LEMA method. Then in the experience section, they actually get you to go and actually experience it and actually engage with the book. So they actually produce a summary workbook, which is some of the core key action steps based on the book. And then from there, you can actually go and actually fill out this workbook, fill out the questions, interact with the book summary itself, and actually experience what the book's all about. Then the M section is actually to memorize. So they actually reinforce every week the memorization principles spoken about in Moonwalking with Einstein, which is actually one of the books I think I suggested in our very first book summary episode.
Yes, you did.
It's all about just memorizing and actually making sure you take away some of the key principles from the book summary. And then obviously the final element of LEMA, the A, stands for ACT. And it's all about encouraging you and pushing you to actually take some form of action sooner rather than later from what you've learnt throughout the book summary, to actually then really internalize that actual key concept and actually make it part of who you are moving forward. So it's a very, very unique but truly awesome, could not recommend it highly enough, book summary service. There's plenty of book summary services out there that are very much just non-tactile is probably one way of putting it, where it's just simply words on a page as a summary. That's sort of the abstract type book summaries you probably remember from high school in English class and literature class. These guys have taken it to the next level. And I've been playing around with it for quite some time, and have been really, really happy, elated, engaged, motivated by their service, and I'm super excited that they've actually really opening up for a public launch. So there's a whole range of books already available inside, and obviously they release one on a very, very regular basis. Do the Work, Stephen Pressfield's book that you spoke about, Guy Kawasaki's most recent book, Enchantment's in there, a whole bunch of other books worth checking out that we would have mentioned, I'm sure, in our initial episode on books such as 4-Hour Body, Crush It, Brain Rules, Evil Plans. What else is there? Moonwalking with Einstein, which I just mentioned. Neuromarketing, which is a great one. Getting Things Done. Linchpin, Made to Stick. Positioning. Steve Jobs' new biography. The Eighth Habit. Seth Godin's got some books in here. Rework, which is a book you recommended today, is in here. Eric Rees, the Lean Startup book, which is the guy that you spoke about last week in our podcast, and his minimum viable product concept comes from the Lean Startup, which is summarized inside here. There's also the Thank You Economy, Think Better, Tribal Leadership, Trust Agents, Unmarketing. There's a whole bunch of books already available in here when you come and sign up and become a member. But obviously they're going to be pushing out a lot more books on a lot more regular basis now they've got this public launch happening this week. So justreaditfor.me is where I'd suggest you go to check this out. Sign up, check it out. They've got a bit of a free trial running at the moment to get to experience the awesome Lima learning method they apply here to the book summaries. So it's something that I'm super excited about. Really, really recommend everyone check out the service there and subscribe and become a member and devour books. Obviously, we love them. We speak about them almost every week on the podcast, and I think this is a fantastic service. And I'm going to be obviously pushing Steve and the team behind Read It For Me to push through a lot of the books that we've recommended into this service, so you can actually get the summary version and just get the core message in a very, very engaging way through PDFs, workbooks, and obviously the video there too.
Okay, while you just actually take a breath, and everybody can now put their players back on double speed.
I'm excited. Sorry, I'm passionate.
You are so excited. Do you know what, folks? Pete called me the other day, and he said, "Dude, you've got to see this. You've got to see this." And I'm a bit overhyped this year. I'm a bit bored with hype. I'm a bit bored with everybody telling me that this is the best thing they've ever seen, blah, 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 blah. And Pete's one of the few people that I listen to. If Pete says it's good, it's got to be good. But he was so excited. I really couldn't believe that anything was actually that good. I thought he was still on adrenaline from the Iron Man. But I have to say, I'm going to try and stay calm. I was absolutely blown away by this service. Now, we recommend Audible because Audible is an awesome service for you to consume big name business books and all other content, audio, all kinds of audio books in your kind of downtime, because they come to you as audio and you can listen to them at different speeds and things like that. And if you can do that, that's great. And Audible is a really good service, absolute bargain for their subscription, and I highly, highly recommend it. But I know a lot of people can't cope with it. I know a lot of people find spending 3 or 4 hours on some of these business books and just hard to concentrate, and they can't make notes because they're driving or cycling and things like that. It just doesn't seem to go in. And I appreciate that. I'm a big person for the different learning modalities. So when I saw this, I was just absolutely blown away, because they do address all the modalities. And it's not just that they address all the modalities, and it's from a learning psychology point of view, which I know a fair amount about. The Lima model has been proved to be very, very effective. It's the quality. That's what got me. It's the absolute quality of these videos and the PDFs and the extra materials that they produce to build this entire... It really is a learning environment. And so I also strongly recommend that you take up the current free offer that they've got going on. Go and have a look. Check it out. Sign up for a free go. See what they've got for you. See the range of the books and the quality of the depth of the material, and see if it's for you. It might not be. Or you might like Audible. You might do a lot of cycling for no better reason than you want to go cycling, Peter, or that you've got a new bike, Peter. But whatever floats your boat. But do have a look at this, because it is one of those. It's completely different modalities. It's an excellent learning resource, and it's done so well. And by the way, I have nothing to do with these guys. Genuinely, Pete showed me this, and I'm telling you this as a person who has in the past struggled with learning, and so understands the power of it. So definitely check that out and give us some feedback. Let us know what you think about it, and let us know if there's a book on there, not a book that's missing. As Pete said, we're going to try and talk to these guys, get a bit of a relationship with them, and suggest some books that off our lists that we think are important, so that we can tell you guys those are on there. But definitely give it a go. And I think, Pete, we should maybe do a little bit of a video tour at some point. and let people have a look at that. Because, some people might not want to sign up, even though it's free. So maybe you and I could do one of those, a little video tour inside, and show people the quality of this stuff so they can get an idea.
It sounds like a good idea. We'll throw it up on the Preneurmedia.tv website, which is obviously where you can get all our back episodes, leave feedback, get all the show notes as well for those who aren't completely au fait with iTunes and how they sneakily sometimes hide the show notes. All the show notes, transcriptions, downloadable audios, all that sort of stuff is available for this podcast and all the previous episodes over at Preneurmedia.tv.
Awesome. Well, that's an excellent episode wrapped up. I do like the way that you brought it all back with the little justreadit4.me service, which I'm signed up to. I'm into there, mate. I'm into that. So hopefully people have found this one useful. Do give us some feedback, either on the iTunes store. Pop over there now and sign in and give us some feedback on this episode, or pop over to I'm going to start that again. Or pop over to Preneurmedia.tv and experience the different modalities there.
Absolutely. So we'll all see you all hopefully next week for our final episode of this year, which is going to be a really cool episode. Last year on my blog into the Preneur community, I put out a video which was fundamentally my picks of the year, my favourite tech, my favourite book, my best documentary, my favourite products, all that sort of jazz, the best of the best, the awards season, so to speak. So we're going to turn that video last year into a podcast episode, which is what Dom and I are doing next week. So make sure you check that one out to finish up this year. And then we'll see you back here for 2012. But next week, don't miss the show. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be our best of 2011.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of Preneurcast with Pete Williams and Dom Gosher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at Preneurmedia.tv or drop them a line via Preneurcast@preneurgroup.com.